Okay, these are the notes for Chapter 5 for the social media class, Web 214, social media platforms and social networking sites. So your book starts off with a section on the list of different social media platforms. And social media as a genre as a whole encompasses a whole lot of different types of items to interact with. According to Decidedly Social, there are 13 different types of social media platforms that may be considered, and all of them are highlighted here in your book, along with different examples of what some of these social media sites are. Social networking sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Gather. Microblogging sites like Twitter and Tumblr. Publishing tools, WordPress, Blogger, Squarespace, all of that considered to be within social media. Collaboration tools like Wikipedia, Wikitravel, all the different user-initiated types of information that's out there where you can go and you can contribute to the information that's available. Rating and review sites like Amazon Ratings and Angie's List, all of these considered to be social media. Photo sharing sites, video sharing sites, personal broadcasting tools, so a lot of the different podcasting type of tools, also the live streaming types of tools where you can get some sort of live video or audio. Virtual worlds, so yes, Farmville is social media. A lot of gaming applications here as well, including things like World of Warcraft. Location-based services, and this is now kind of getting into some parts of services that are available within other types of social media, so Facebook Places, Foursquare, also being within that, check-ins on different social media sites, widgets, including like buttons and profile badges, social bookmarking and news aggregation, such as Dig and Delicious, and then group buying sites like Groupon. All of that considered to be under the umbrella of social media. Now, in order to be profitable, social networks must either rely on advertising, like Facebook does, or a subscription sort of basis, kind of like LinkedIn. Because the networks, they offer great services to people, and many times they are free to use for the most part. Again, subscriptions notwithstanding. But one way or another, they have to make money. If they don't charge a subscription fee or a use fee, then the major source of income is going to be through advertising. The top social networking sites have changed in recent years, driven by the tastes of new generations. So it's very easy for a social media site to become popular very quickly. It's also easy for a social media site to lose favor very quickly, depending on trends in culture. Facebook's invitation and approval process for entrance into an individual's sphere of friends and acquaintances ensures exclusivity. So we talk about this as the idea of social media, but it's not necessarily set up in certain cases, like Facebook, for example, where you can automatically look into everybody's profile and interact with everybody. Some people have their profiles public that anybody can see, but most people tend to keep their profiles locked down, at least to a certain extent, where at the very least you have to be their Facebook friend in order to see anything that they post on their wall. So there's this protocol where if you find someone that you want to be Facebook friends with, you click on Add Friend, and that is more of a request than it is a command. The request goes to the person to whom you want to be friends with, and they either approve or delete your request. A social network site is an online service in which members can establish relationships based on friendship, kinship, shared interests, business advantage, or other reasons. This is the very basic definition of what social networking does. And again, we're talking about a certain aspect of social media, dealing with the social networking. And we're going to be talking mostly in this chapter about Facebook and LinkedIn, but other sites obviously, according to the list that we saw earlier, would fall into this category as well. A social network site facilitates these interactions by letting members build a public or private profile, by specifying who can connect with them, and sharing their connection with others. So as you're creating this circle of friends, if you will, you're creating this circle where you have at least a certain tolerance or affinity for the different people that you are interacting with. And that creates a bit of a community, basically kind of like an online clique, if you will, to be honest. Social network sites are the latest development of a prior internet phenomenon, that being discussion boards. In the case of discussion boards, many times you have to sign up, log in using a username, and get onto the site in that way. Although, for the most part, discussion boards tend to be pretty much public, where anybody can see what you have posted as long as they log on with their own account. And some discussion board sites are completely open, where you don't even have to log in to be able to see what's going on. But this would be one of the predecessors to what we think of as the social network site today. A virtual community focuses on building relationships using discussion boards to converse about topics of shared interest. Technology's ability to aggregate personal characteristics make it easier than ever to connect to others with similar backgrounds or interests. So I called it kind of an online clique earlier. Better name for it, virtual community. So you're using the different tools that are available on these social networking sites to be able to share thoughts and ideas, to be able to talk with people that you have something in common with, or want to build an interest in a particular topic or issue, and the virtual community allows you to do that. Online communities were the forerunners of social networks. While other virtual communities are driven by thoughts and ideas, social networks are primarily organized around people and not interests. So in this case here, where we do see that there are certain sites available that do focus around one interest in particular, or kind of a certain sect or a hobby, say you're into racing cars, or you're into old movies, or you're into whatever else. There are social networks that do that, but for the most part, social networks are more organized around people themselves. Social networks online have encouraged the development of brand communities within this whole spectrum. So as social networks grow and become more popular, they become much more attractive to companies, so that companies can get on and share what's on their minds and try to reach out to their fan base and to other potential customers. Moving on, a brief history of social networks. We'll talk about some of the ones that came in the early days, and talk about the big one that's out there right now. One of the first social network sites was 6degrees.com. It let users build profiles, display a list of their friends, and then traverse those lists as they see fit. Although each of these functions had already been implemented by dating services and by other virtual communities, 6degrees.com was the first to combine them all into one space, to be able for people to use all of them to be able to navigate through and to connect with people. In 2001, Rise.com was launched to help people make connections and grow their personal networks. Now, many of those involved in Rise.com went on to get behind such social network sites as Friendster and Tribe.net and LinkedIn. So this was kind of one of those middle grounds where Rise was able to kind of build on what 6 Degrees did, and was the forerunner for some of what we have in place today. In August of 2003, MySpace was launched. Its founders wanted to attract the estranged Friendster users. And then by 2 years later, May 2005, MySpace had become the 5th ranked web domain in terms of page views. So it was the 5th most popular website to visit in all the world, not just social media sites or social networking sites, but website, period. MySpace was number 5. Not long after that, in February of 2004, Mark Zuckerberg launches the Facebook, originally located at thefacebook.com. Unlike previous social network sites, membership was initially limited to only people with a harvard.edu email address. This was a restriction that created the perception of an intimate, exclusive community, with Harvard being an Ivy League school and kind of a prestige and a reputation that comes along with going to a school like Harvard. It was kind of a system where you have this kind of built-in online exclusive community. And it was something that was very attractive to the students of Harvard University, where thousands signed up for a Facebook account within a matter of 24 hours, and many more following within the first 30 days of the Facebook existing. The social network quickly spread to other Boston area universities, then to other Ivy League universities, and then gradually to most colleges and universities in the United States. About a year and a half later, 2005, U.S. high school students were allowed to join Facebook. And then the social network spread to educational institutions in other countries as well. Finally, in 2006, Facebook expands its registration policy to anyone older than the age of 13 with a valid email address. And that's pretty much kind of where we stand right now, is that if you have an email address and you attest that you're 13 or older, you can get a Facebook account. In 2008, Facebook overtook MySpace in terms of traffic. MySpace still exists, but not near to the caliber it was in the early to mid-2000s. As of right now, Facebook generates 81% of the content shared to social networks. Now, Facebook is the social networking site that most of us tend to think of in terms of its scope and its reach and the number of people that use it. However, on an international level, in other countries, different social network sites have risen to prominence. Marketers who want to reach a global audience should take into consideration these other social networks. Some countries in the Eastern Hemisphere, for example, there's other popular social networking platforms that are used much more so than Facebook. For example, in countries like China and in Russia and in India, there's other social networking platforms that are more popular in those countries. So if you ever are trying to market on social media for those outside of the United States, that's something you're going to want to check on to see if there might be a social media platform more popular than Facebook that you're going to want to get involved with. The benefits of marketing with social networks. One consequence of online social networks has been to blur the line between business and personal life. With contacts overlapping between business, family, school, and so on, keeping private life out of the public eye is increasingly difficult. We're seeing this more and more and more as our lives become so entangled in the integration of technology. This goes beyond social media sites. The fact that we have kitchen appliances that are connected to the internet. You have an internet-connected crock pot, for example. And we've heard about the refrigerators that allow you to log in with a phone app and be able to see what's inside your fridge and things like that. Just a small example of how business and personal is getting entangled. The fact that we have so many listening devices that are out there, from smartphones to home assistants like Google and the Amazon one, and ones run by Apple that those things are continually listening and offering all sorts of different perks and services at the cost of invasion of privacy. But also just from the aspect of trying to separate work life from personal life, the ability to connect with people anytime, anywhere through several different platforms has really made that difficult. Much personal information, especially contributed by young people, can now be found on the internet. Online sharing of popular interests is highly valuable to a social media marketer. These days, when you log on to Facebook and you check in that you went to a certain restaurant or you're at a certain game, maybe you went to a concert, you're hanging out with friends doing a certain activity, you're wearing certain clothes, that data is being aggregated and it's made available to marketers, which is how we're able to get highly targeted advertising that reaches us through the online platforms that we use. Marketing with social networks has several advantages for firms, allowing them to find talent, to be able to build brand awareness, to find new customers, and to help conduct brand intelligence and market research. So we've kind of talked a bit about the data that's available out there. Also, the ability to find people that can fulfill certain requirements that prospective employers are looking for, to form other sorts of partnerships and things like that. For example, last week, there was a video that went out on YouTube for Family Feud Canada. And during the initial part of the round where they buzz in and try to get the top answer and things like that, the question was given, what Popeye's favorite food is? Popeye the Sailor, for example. The person buzzed in and they said Popeye's chicken. That wasn't the right answer. The right answer was spinach, because Popeye eats spinach. However, Popeye's chicken has been in the news for several months. It's become very popular. And while she wound up losing the game, Popeyes then reached out to her and gave her thousands of dollars worth of free chicken for the free advertising she basically gave to Popeye's chicken during Family Feud Canada. Companies are watching, and if they see something they like, they very well may reach out. The term brand intelligence refers to information that businesses can collect about their customers, from basic demographics to topics of discussion to detailed feedback. Instead of costly market research, monitoring social networks can gather general sentiments, opinions, and customer needs with great efficiency. So a lot of the data that's being provided by social networks to companies is very, very valuable information that used to take all sorts of different types of legwork in order for companies to be able to get, including all these details that we have listed here, the demographics to interests and things like that. Surveys don't necessarily need to be done as much anymore. While they're still an effective tool, the survey is basically being done by you by virtue of logging onto your social network, posting the things that you post, and the artificial intelligence is smart enough to recognize what it is you're posting about, where you're posting from, what you're doing, how you're feeling about those things, and all of that data is super, super valuable to the marketer. The best marketing with social networks comes not from the company, but from the customer or the fan base. We talked a lot about this in Chapter 1, that with social networks, the company doesn't always have full control of the narrative of the way that a company is perceived or talked about. The customers, the ones that are using the social media, the ones that like those different companies and different posts, they're the ones that really have the control here. Here's an example. The Facebook page for Coca-Cola started out with 2 fans. Didn't start with a company. It started with 2 people that just really liked Coke. When the company saw how successful the page was, instead of trying to squash the page, they bought the page and then were able to use it to propel the brand forward. The brand story shared online talked very little about the product itself. It talks more about how Coca-Cola can help people. Facebook gave Coke's customers a place to voice their brand enthusiasm. So for Coke, their social networking presence is not about pushing product. It's about creating brand reputation as a company that is integrated into the world culture and into various types of human service types of things. And it's been very successful for Coke. When considering which social media network to use, we should consider the characteristics of the target audience. The following list coming up here is just a sample of characteristics of the audience that should be considered when selecting a social media platform. So we talk about the idea of knowing your message and knowing your audience. So you need to know your audience, not just who the audience is, but how does that audience think and believe and act, and what sorts of things motivate them. What about them is going to be prominent when you go to reach out to them? How can you appeal to those things that you discover? Well, here's a few questions that you can ask. Is the target consumers or is it professionals? If you're reaching out for professionals, LinkedIn might be a better platform to use, and other social networks more for consumers. Is the target male or female? Some networks appeal more to females, like Pinterest, for example. Thirdly, where do they hang out? Fish where the fish are. If your customer base likes Instagram, market there. So where are the people that you're trying to reach? What platforms do they use? It's easy to find that out. Search it out. Go where they are. Don't make them come to you. You go to them. Is my product visual? If so, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube make sense for visual product. Are my consumers content oriented? If sharing and posting is important, consider Facebook or another interactive network. If blogging is important to your customers, consider LinkedIn. All of these sites have ability for you to be able to link to different blog posts and do things in that sort of vein. But depending on the type of stuff that you're blogging as well, if it's more technical, professional, LinkedIn especially is going to be a better choice for you. Does your target audience like to collaborate? If so, wikis and other sharing sites may be important there. Tech is a great example of where that may be true. If you've got people that are tinkering with computers, trying to make hardware and software work, wiki sites, forums where they talk about troubleshooting and solving problems, great idea of places to be in that example. Are product demonstrations needed? YouTube provides wonderful product demonstrations for visual products like home repair equipment, or in my case, if I'm looking for something on a car, I tend to use YouTube quite a bit to see where something is located, how to pull it out, how to put it back in, all those sorts of things. Due to their informational sharing capabilities, social networks can also be used as a new distribution channel for marketing messages. Marketers must be aware that people participate on social networks primarily to connect with friends, not to search out new products. So there's kind of a touchy thing here, is that we don't go online specifically to be sold to unless we're actively seeking out information on a product, especially when we're going to a social networking site. We're looking to see what's going on in the lives of our friends that are part of our circle. But we may also sign up for some of these company pages that we can get information about the things that we're interested in. So on one hand, we don't necessarily want to be sold to when we're online using these sites. But at the same time, if we're interested in something, there is an opportunity for companies to market to us and reach out to us in a way that may be more appealing than just a traditional type of advertisement. An advantage of networks such as Facebook is that they encourage users to have many conversations with different people or brands all occurring at once. So you can become part of a larger narrative or a larger conversation by using marketing skills to reach out to folks on social networking sites. Now, something that has been kind of a problem, because we have talked about the fact that social networking and social media is not a place that is fully controlled by the companies that are putting out their message. A lot of it is consumer and user based in terms of the way that things are shared and portrayed and all those sorts of things. So there are many that worry about participating on social networks might make their company appear unprofessional or invite negative commentary. And we have seen examples of how that has happened in the past. However, social media can make finding negativity easier, make it easier to deal with. A social network profile can become the lightning rod for criticism, concentrating it in one location for easy response. Instead of having to search all over the internet for any bad press that may be out there, it allows people to be able to, either by commenting on a post that you made or by using a hashtag or something like that, to be able to look to see if there is negative press about your company. And as a space to respond to criticism and receive feedback, participating on social networks have many benefits to a firm in that way. The largest of which would be the authenticity that allows a company to have with its user base to be able to own up to mistakes and issues and things that are not liked, as opposed to hiding away from them, showing your customer base how you might remedy a problem, or at least at the very, if nothing else, that you're listening to the people and you're taking their opinions and their concerns into account. Marketing within social networks. Many businesses are motivated to interact on social networks, but large numbers of these companies do not have much payoff from their efforts. This kind of goes back to one of the myths that we talked about in Chapter 1, that social media can be a time-consuming sort of thing. And weighing the idea of how much time you're investing in social media versus the actual return of your investment that you're going to receive. And a lot of that stems from not necessarily having a strong social media marketing plan, not quite knowing how to use the tools that are available out there. Although even if you are using the tools effectively, it does take time. And at least initially, it does take a certain amount of effort to be able to start to see any sort of significant return on what it is that you're doing online. On a social network, therefore, it's especially important to enter with a strong understanding of your strategies and your objectives. Step 1. Decide on goals and objectives that should be achieved. Otherwise, due to its informal nature, social networking can easily become a distraction rather than an aid for firms. To avoid this problem, develop a solid plan before marketing on a social network. So we've talked in other classes about the idea of having a vision for what you want the end result for something to be. Have it playing out in your mind, whether it's an audio production piece or it's anything else that you're working on. Social media strategy is no different. What's your end goal? What do you want it to look like? How do you want people interacting with the things that you post online? Set those goals and objectives. And as you do so, think about those goals and objectives, and then ask yourself, how do you get there? That's the way you put a plan into place. The next decision involves the target market. Different social networks attract extremely different clientele. So knowing who the audience is and where to find them is essential. So going out looking for your target audience, meeting them where they are at. Now, for online marketing, most campaigns will fall into one of two categories, either business to consumer marketing or business to business marketing. If you're going for business to consumer marketing, the biggest one out there is Facebook. If you're going for business to business marketing, you may have a better shot using LinkedIn because, again, of the types of clientele that use their platforms.